big, big review. Sorry it took so long, ladies and gentlemen. Kendrick Lamar, Mr. Morale, and the Big Steppers album review. Let's chat about it. Hey guys and gals, good evening. Hope everybody's doing well. John here from What's Spinning here tonight to come to you to chat about this new album from Kendrick Lamar, Compton-based MC. Do I really need to introduce the man? Since day one, where this guy stepped into the hip-hop game, he's been pretty freaking special. I mean, yes, there are some portions of Overly Dedicated, as well as Section 80, that I still feel like are a little underwhelming, just a little bit, but at the very least, the hype was so real. At a young age, as far as storytelling goes, his form, his wordplay, his conscious thoughts were so far ahead of the game, it's still wild to go back and listen to. And since then, whew, yeah, he's been on a roll. I mean, Good Kid, Mad City saved me at a time where I was so far out of the loop on modern hip-hop. It dragged me back in and honestly has become probably one of my favorite rap albums of the last 10 years. And To Pimp a Butterfly, I mean, what's to say about it? It's freaking masterful. Oh, and while we're at it, I named Damn my second favorite album of 2017. Kendrick is a modern master. Now, this has been a incredibly anticipated album for, I feel like the last few years. People have been waiting for Kendrick to come back and hit us with a new album. And the days leading up to this album, things got even more, highly anticipated. The Heart Part 5, Kendrick, you did not have to go that hard for us, but you did. Not only that, but shortly before this album was unleashed on us, it was revealed to be a double album. This thing is 19 tracks long. 18 tracks. I make mistakes sometimes. And overall, yeah, it's great. This album starts off with United in Grief, and Kendrick does not waste a single second. Even that opening sample that comes back a couple of times on this album is so freaking simple, but it sticks with you. Then, of course, as this track rolls on, Kendrick takes off completely against this very hip, very jazzy beat. It's nuts, and this track only gets more intense as the instrumental picks up and Kendrick goes freaking bonkers. He is so full of energy, but he matches that with coherent thoughts, poignant lyrics. Not only that, but certainly a theme that we're going to be chatting about a lot in the next few minutes, a level of emotion on this album that I don't think we've seen from him. And these lyrics are really, as far as personal lyrics, I think a high for Kendrick. He dives into career, his fame, the pros, the cons, a lot in a few short minutes, as well as entering therapy, another major theme of this album. We'll be chatting about it a lot. Kendrick is back in a big way. And 95, it might be the best track here. It's a fantastic single. I freaking love this beat here. The production as well is just so sharp. In a way, this track reminds me of what I loved so much about Good Kid, Mad City. It's spiritual at times, it's feisty at others, and honestly, this sung hook is really memorable. I don't see any weaknesses on this track, that's for damn sure. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna be honest, this first disc is just about perfect. Then we have Worldwide Steppers. Kendrick's energy continues to amaze me, as well as the things he has to talk about. I mean, Kendrick in his albums has never shied away from touchy subjects. This track is no different. His personal life, religion, as well as numerous sexual experiences with white women really are just the star here. Put it up against some classy beats with some serious one-liners, and honestly, I mean, it sounds so simple, but Kendrick is on, such another level as far as modern hip-hop goes. It just comes off so effortlessly. We also get Die Hard, which is a little bit more on the poppier side, but as far as that goes, I don't think it's bad. Mostly because this performance on this track is so heartfelt and emotional, it sticks with so many of the themes that we get here. We have some really warm rhythms that come off super tasteful, as well as another sung portion from Kendrick that, once again, comes off really tasteful. It ends up being this absolutely beautiful track about, honesty in relationships. Also, not being haunted by your past. It's really telling. Father Time featuring Sampha is also really gold. I mean, this is just a sound in modern hip-hop that I love. This is Kendrick's sort of rainy day, gloomy jazz rap album at the end of the day. At least a good hunk of it is. I mean, this is what I wanted to hear out of Vince Staples and Earl Sweatshirt this year. The beat and the production on this track are genius. Absolutely genius. And Sampha's sung hook here is awesome. These two have such good chemistry. On top of that, the overarching themes of gang culture and daddy issues really go very well together. It's a very creative track. And in a time where I'm just going off on interludes that go nowhere and coming off like incomplete thoughts, Kendrick is making me so happy with stuff like the Rich interlude. This is intense, dramatic, and well thought out, and it helps this album's flow from one thought to the next. Then we have Rich Spirit, which is a much more dark, grim tune. This is a freaking somber track, man. This very gloomy beat, once again, is not where I'm used to hearing Kendrick. It's a really deep, personal tune that shows Kendrick, once again, confronting himself. It's another major theme of this album, and I have to stress that. There's a lot of tracks on here that I don't want to go too far into because I feel like half the pleasure of this album is listening to it firsthand. And I will say this, in a lot of ways, Kendrick has changed a lot in the last few years. You know, he's a very different man now. And this album, in a very big way, is a very different side of Kendrick. You might not like it, but I do. And then disc 1 kind of, wraps up really nicely with Purple Hearts featuring Summer Walker and Ghostface Killah. Honestly, one of my favorite deep cuts here. I love the very glitzy yet still very somber production. And Kendrick just sounds exhausted here, but I mean that in the best way. Like, he sounds like he's gone through so much. He sounds like emotionally burned out, but just as sharp-tongued and conscious. Ghostface contributions, they're solid as ever, and I freaking love Summer Walker's hook here. It is one of the best here. Like I said, disc 1 is just about perfect, even if I'm not completely sold on We Cry Together. I mean, this track gave me such high hopes when I hear this intro sample, this incredible Florence and the Machine sample. It gave me the chills. But what follows is a lot of things. Here we see Kendrick Lamar and Taylor Page, simulating this very intense dispute between a couple. And we have the front row seat, baby. It's intense. It is pretty visceral, and honestly, it's very real at times. And I do get what he was saying, and I love what he's saying at the end of the day, because he does get to the point, this, stop dancing around the conversation. I love that. But it's one of the few tracks here that I'm not just completely enamored with from start to finish. I do get it, though. Which leads me to disc 2, which is still very good. Not perfect, but still very good. Count Me Out is a really great start. Is once again Kendrick self-examining himself in a very, very, very good way. It's deeply personal. It shows Kendrick diving in headfirst into relationships. Honestly, past relationships, present relationships, and he comes out of this track sounding ready to move on. It's really powerful. So is Crown. It's really powerful. So is the Savior interlude, another very solid interlude here. Baby Keem takes most of the duties here, and honestly, he does it really well. He shines with a very intense, wordy performance over a very classy string sort of beat. It's exciting. It's a powerful interlude. It works. We also have the track Savior featuring Baby Keem once again, as well as Sam Daw. Once again, this is very powerful. Like I said, Kendrick is really not scared to dive headfirst into very difficult topics. Here he dives into race, religion, COVID-19, reminding us at the end of the day that celebrities, your saviors, are humans at the end of the day. And yes, I really haven't touched down much upon this yet, but this is a very spiritual album. Kenny is a very spiritual guy these days, and whether you agree with his views or not, a lot of them do make you think. It's approached really well. Mr. Morale featuring Tana Leone is a really great late album treat as well. It's one of the most intense and exciting tracks here. Kendrick on this track sounded like he was gonna freaking burst if he didn't get this verse out. It dives into trauma very deeply too, and not so shocking. We're, 16 tracks in now, and Kendrick still has a ton to say. And Mother I Sober featuring Beth Gibbons of Portishead. is absolutely flooring. I don't even want to go into detail too much as far as the lyrics go. Once again, this is the kind of track that you need to experience for yourself. But I will say this, though. In an album that has been constantly self-reflective, this may be the most self-reflective track here. And between that and the haunting, hard-to-place nature of this entire track, between the instrumental, the production, then we get Beth Gibbons, her contributions to this track, which is such a knockout of a feature. Kendrick, you did so good. This, too, it's not as consistent. It actually has a handful of my least favorite tracks here, like Crown. This is, once again, a massive, deep investigation into Kendrick Lamar's psyche. And I have really loved the very gloomy vibes of this album. But this is one of very few tracks here where the gloomy vibes are getting to me. And it's just a little much. I would have killed for some freaking energy right now. His heart's in the right place for sure, but you also get Silent Hill featuring Kodak Black, one of the most controversial tracks here. And outside of that, this just isn't my cup of tea. I mean, the beat isn't that bad, but overall, the vibes of this track, this is just not what I come to a Kendrick Lamar album for. It's straight up obnoxious at times, and yes, I know that I was just praying for some energy a few minutes ago on Crown, but this is not the way to do it. And Kodak Black, controversy aside, I've never been a fan. I've never understood him. He doesn't add anything. And I have a lot of conflicting thoughts on Anti-Diaries as well. Kendrick on this track goes into two different stories about two transgender people and uses these stories to do something really interesting, and that is kind of critique his own views, society's views, religion's views on them. And that is commendable, and it's not bad. It's certainly not terrible. But it's one of few tracks here where I kind of worry Kendrick's maybe in a little over his head. He certainly has his heart in the right place, and he brings to the table some very, strong thoughts. And I will say this, the last minute of this track is mesmerizing and excellent, but it's a long track, and it's just not really, cohesive. And as a finale, Mirror is just not up to snuff. I mean, there's nothing particularly wrong with this track. There really isn't. But I just kind of feel like this is like an epilogue track. Like, this sounds like a summary of the last 17 tracks, which is fine. That's something I like from time to time. But after just, being floored completely by Mother I Sober, honestly, this was a little bit of a letdown. I kind of wish that was the finale to this album. We'll say this, though, Kendrick does sound in a better place by the end of the track. This album, it's very different for Kendrick Lamar, and that's kind of why this review took so long. It took a long time for me to really, take it all in, sit with it and listen and feel things. And I feel like, I've seen a lot of the reviews come out, and a lot of people love this album, but I think it's also going to be incredibly divisive, too. I mean, this is very different. This is a lot of rainy day, gloomy, introspective hip-hop, which is not exactly what we've come to know and love from Kendrick. Not that that's a bad thing. We all have to, evolve over time. Kendrick's a different person than he was 5 years ago, and that's pretty obvious on this album. But I love it, most of it, especially this one. This one is near perfect. Most of this, too, is really good, too. Yes, there are some times where I think there are some thoughts that maybe needed some sharpening up, or maybe Kendrick needed to shift things a little bit more. But still, it's Kendrick. This album is great. Who am I kidding? I'm feeling a decent 8 on this album, but let me know what you guys think down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, guys.